Welcome to the show. So happy to have you here with me today. I want to give a special shout out to my fans in Georgia. I so appreciate hearing from you, and I really appreciate the upcoming suggestion that I have worked into the schedule. I know I'm sorry you have to wait a while, but I had a lot of requests ahead of it. But so glad to have you tuning in. Anyway, today the topic is the 6 types of empaths. And I want to start just by talking about the fact that being an empath is a spiritual gift. And just like it is, if you're a psychic, if you're a medium, those are gifts God gave you. It's not a mistake. It's not a character flaw. It is a gift that you're given for this lifetime, and you're supposed to use it in some meaningful way. And it's can be very difficult. Growing up as an empath, people tend to be told over and over, you're so sensitive, you're too sensitive. You are sensitive, you're an empath. That's what being an empath is. So most people think of being an empath is that you feel other people's emotions. That is the most common type of empath, and every type of empath generally has that. So I'm going to tell you that what it's like to be an empath. As a young person, a child, and my younger adult years, I really hated it, and I just wanted it to stop. I was so tired of feeling waves of emotion that weren't mine. I didn't have a mentor for this. Really, the word empath hadn't even come up in those days. So I knew as people called that being asensitive. And now it's got a name, empath. So it was just like, for instance, if I was around somebody who was angry, I would really feel it like, I wouldn't get angry, but I'd feel their anger, and I would feel like an emotional attack on me. And even if it's nothing to do with me and I don't even know that person, if somebody was really sad, I would feel waves of sadness washing through me. I might even get tearful. And when I would try to go to church, I remember one distinct time I went to Unity Church in Phoenix, their main church there. And I was sitting in the middle of the service, and all of a sudden I felt from every direction such grief, such sadness. And I felt tears welling up, and I started to sob, and I was trying to hold it in because I was embarrassed and I didn't want anybody to know what was going on. And I finally just had to get out of there. And I went into the restroom and sobbed and got it out of my system, calmed myself down. But when I tried to go back in, the same thing happened. So I've learned that for me, if I want to go to a church, it needs to be a really small one, and I need to sit far in the back so I'm not surrounded by people. It's for me also, like things like going to a movie theater. I think my sister, who lives here in Arizona, thinks this is the nuttiest thing, but I can't stand to have strangers sitting right next to me. I don't even like them right in front of me or behind me in a movie theater, because all their emotions are intruding upon my experience and making me feel bad. So I do try to shut that down, but I don't want to be consciously putting a shield up as I'm trying to watch a movie. So I tend to go at off hours. Sometimes I go by myself and I sit in a section like way down in the front where nobody wants to sit, so that I can have all the space around me. And it's just really about controlling your emotional environment. So being an empath can leave you feeling emotionally exhausted. That's why a lot of empaths don't like to go to crowded places. They don't like noisy, wild parties. It's way too much energy. And they tend to need a lot of alone time to recenter and recharge their own energy. I'm finding the further I go into my professional career, doing this work as an angel communicator, a psychic, a medium, a healer, I need more time alone than ever before. And it surprises me because I used to be such a social person. Like when I did mental health work, I had something going pretty much every night of the week. And, dance rehearsals and play rehearsals and singing with a band and this and that, just something pretty much every night. And I loved it. I can't do that now. And I know that there's times when, like, For instance, one of my good friends, Julia, is a great singer, and I love to go hear her sing with the guitarist who plays with her. And sometimes I plan to go, and then when I'm done with work, I'm so emotionally exhausted that I can't. I have to go home and just nap for a while or lay down in silence for a while. And I know I'm not alone with this. I'm not telling you this like to share my personal life. I'm telling you because very often in stories, people can identify and they can understand what's going on for them and make sense of maybe someone listening right now is no longer social like they used to be. Maybe they're realizing they want to be alone more. There's nothing wrong with you. Your body, your spirit, your soul is telling you you need some alone time to recharge. That's okay. So understand that there are a variety of types of empaths, and interestingly, only 2 of them have anything to do with absorbing pain or emotions of others around you. So I do want to start with the number 1, the most common one that people think of as an empath, and that's the emotional empath. It's someone who picks up on the emotions of others, like I was describing being at the Unity Church. And it's great during things like, oh gosh, who was it? Oh, one of my clients called yesterday and their son got into 2 Ivy League colleges. And I felt I felt her pride, her joy, the sense of accomplishment. Like I could feel that like it was mine, and that was wonderful. It's not always wonderful, but that was wonderful. So you can feel happiness for other people. You can feel their joy. However, it can be really difficult if you're around people who are negative, who are toxic people like narcissists, people who just dwell on the negative. And so they don't give any energy back. They're just taking your energy, taking. So emotional empaths are going to be the first people to get drained. They're going to be the ones to feel it the most when they're around narcissists and other toxic personalities, and just not be able to tolerate it. It's one of the reasons that I needed to leave the field of mental health. And it wasn't so much the clients, it was some of the people I worked with were quite toxic. And there was some really unhealthy things going on that hurt me just emotionally deeply. And I can't be around these people anymore. So I came across the mountains and came to Sedona, where my guides told me to come. And I worked for a different metaphysical center. There were some super dark people there. So I ended up leaving there pretty quickly and starting my own business with a partner. And that allows me to, make it the way I need it to be, have things set up the way I need it to be. So just be aware, if you're an emotional empath, as most empaths are, you need to really learn how to do shielding for yourself, how to shield yourself from feeling other people's emotions or shut it down further. I actually have a blog post on that topic on my blog, the ivoryangelicmedium.com. There's a blog post that'll get you started with that. And I actually even offer a class on that if you want to go in depth with it. So it's about practicing self-care, energetic self-care, and learning how, this is a big one, learning how to differentiate other people's emotions from yours. So one thing I just want to toss out this helpful hint that's been so beneficial for me. When I start feeling a wash of emotions, which has happened a lot since COVID hit because there's so much trauma going on around the world, I stop and I just say, I don't even try to differentiate it anymore. I just stop and say, angels, anything that is not my own emotions emanating from myself, please remove it from my energetic field at this time. And whatever it is just goes poof, it's gone. I know it's not mine because, eventually you figure it out pretty quick. If you're fine, you're having a great day, and all of a sudden you're sobbing, all of a sudden you feel terror, heaviness, despair, hopeless. That's not yours. That's not yours at all. So just understand that you can feel it not only when you're in the presence of people, but the whole energetic feel of what's going on in the country, what's going on in the world. If you're tuning into what's happening in Ukraine, I know for me, even just saying that, now I feel really heaviness in my heart chakra, and it's kind of hard to breathe. So I'm going to disconnect from that for the show. But anything that you're thinking of, watching on TV, hearing about, or thinking about, you're tuning into the energy of it. So just be aware of that and shield yourself before you do it. The second type of empath is the physical or medical empath. Those with that type of empathy can pick up on the energy of other people's bodies. So they intuitively know what ails another person. And many people with this type of empathic ability become healers, or they go into the medical field in some way. They're natural healers. They feel an awareness in their physical body when they're treating someone. They also can see blockages in a person's energy field that they sense need healing. If you're a medical empath, a physical empath, you pick up on the symptoms from others and feel them in your own body. Taking on those physical symptoms can lead to health problems for you. So you need to learn to clear that out of your body so you don't take it on. I'm going to give you a little story about that. Years ago, I was at a camping event, and it was a huge one. And some male friends that were in our camp had been out partying somewhere, and somebody had slipped something into their drink, and they all had terrible stomach cramping. They were just feeling awful. I tried to get them to go to the hospital. They wouldn't do it. They're young guys. They wouldn't listen. So I said, will you let me do some healing on you? And I just sat behind the one who was having it the worst because he started throwing up. And I put my hands on his back, and I just felt where the discord was, and I sent the healing into that part of his body. He started getting remarkably better. And then I had terrible stomach cramps and felt nauseous and had to go rest. But I worked on the other guy first. But that's how, like, back then, I did not know how to discharge it from my body nearly as well as I do now, 20 years later. So it's a really important skill to have. People who have chronic illnesses like fibromyalgia or autoimmune disease, they're going to find that if you're going to use this type of empath ability you have, then you need to really work on strengthening your own energetic field. Make it as strong, healthy as possible. Keep it that way. And that means shielding yourself and clearing out other people's energy from yours frequently. How do you do that? My favorite way is a detox foot bath. At my business, Sedona Soul Sisters, we have ionic detox foot baths. And I get one about once a week, because when I do that, I feel myself immediately feeling more balanced, more healthy, more vitality, more energy. And I know the water's disgusting afterwards, because you can see based on the colors and stuff, like what part of your body needed detoxing. For empaths, it's going to be quite profound. If you can't do that, take a salt bath at home. Just fill up a tub with some nice hot water, put in about a cup of Epsom salts, a few drops of lavender oil, and I like to throw in a chunk of Himalayan salt, just that pink chunk of rock salt, and just soak in it. If you don't have a tub, get a big basin and put your feet in it for an hour. Same thing, less salt, and put your feet in that for an hour. It's better than nothing. Those things help discharge negative energy from your body and excess energy from your body. I was telling somebody the other day, a client, like, I am a logical person. And so I'm skeptical by nature. I've been skeptical of everything along my spiritual journey. And that included the detox foot baths. I had read somewhere, oh, those are a scam, blah, blah, blah. But I said, okay, I'm going to try them. Somebody that I work with wanted to do those. And I'm like, all right, I'll try them. And I have to say, like, the difference was pretty profound, particularly after the third one and moving forward. And then one time when I was super sick with bronchitis, really sick, fever, and I could barely function. I wasn't getting better. I seemed to be spinning downhill. I went in and had a foot bath at the suggestion of Ed, who works with us. And at the end of the hour, like, I had sparkle in my eye, I had some energy, and I started getting better. And within a week, I was fine. So that's something pretty simple that you can do to get yourself feeling better again. There is also, the fact of, if you have this ability, you should get some training. Consider getting some training in the form of healing so you can hone this ability. whatever modality you decide to do, this particular type, this medical, physical empath ability will come in very handy. For instance, when I do psychic readings, very often, I try not to do this unless somebody asked about it. But if they ask me, like, all right, I have quite a few clients who've had breast cancer in the last 3 years. And one of them said, so I had breast cancer, my left breast, and I had treatment for it. Do you see that reoccurring? And what I felt instantly was on the right breast near the armpit. And I told her, and she said, no, I didn't have it there. And I said, I'm getting it. So, make note of this. Please get that checked just to be sure. She went and got it checked. And sure enough, there was a reoccurrence and it was over in that place. So it's not like I don't consider myself to be a medical intuitive. I do not advertise myself as that. But when people come to see me and they ask about it, if I get something, I'm going to tell them I'm not diagnosing, I'm not healing it. I'm just letting them know what I feel. The second way that I use it is even more so in mediumship readings, because one thing spirit likes to do is to let me feel in my body how they crossed, what led to their death, what did they feel, and they'll let me feel it in order that the symptoms occurred. So let's say they had a heart attack. I'm going to feel stabbing pain in the center of my chest. And then I'm going to start feeling like a weakness in my arms. I'm going to start feeling it's hard to breathe. And at the end, I'm going to start feeling like a detachment mentally, like I'm fading away, step by step like that. And it's just one way spirit lets my client know for sure that that's them, to let them, it's just verification that that is the spirit they asked, that they wanted to connect with. So I allow that for those type of readings. So that's just, it's not something I try to do. It's just something that happens. The third type of empath is called claircognizant or intuitive empath. And I want to take a little moment here. I wanted to say this earlier and I forgot. When you think about these different type of empaths, it's no different than the different types of psychic that are out there. So a person can say they're psychic, but it can mean that the most common one is they have a strong sense of knowing. But they might also be able to smell things other people don't. They might feel things in their body. They might hear things that other people can't. There's a whole list of abilities for psychic. One psychic doesn't have the other, a few have them all. There's a psychic taste, all these different things. Same thing for empaths. So the word empath is sort of like a heading, and then these are subheadings under that ability. So I want to talk about what does it mean if you're a claircognizant or intuitive empath. You're going to pick up information about people simply by being around them. I'm going to give you an example. Yesterday, I had a great new client come in, really fun guy. And when I walked out into the lobby, the first thing I do is just do a quick little tune in. And I thought, oh, he's great. He's joyful and fun. And I thought, oh, this is going to be a great reading. And it really was. And he turned out to be a comedian. And so he really was fun and funny. So there's things you can pick up. I can pick up when I look at a person. Oh, they're a light worker. Oh, they're a medium. Hey, they've got a connection to angels. That's true for anybody with this ability, this type of empath ability. And the reason it's claircognizant empath as well as intuitive empath, it is also a psychic skill. Being an empath is a psychic skill. So you can get all kinds of insight. You might immediately know if someone is lying. You might have a sense of the true intent behind a person's words. So they might be saying words that seem like they have your best interest at heart, and you're feeling they're very self-serving. So that's just a few instances. And if you have this, you resonate with other people's energetic fields. You read that very quickly. So it's not reading minds, it's reading the energetic field, which is what a psychic reading is, by the way. And it's closely related to a telepathic empath who can read another person's thoughts. That's a very rare skill, but sometimes people think psychic is like equivalent to reading minds. Is not. If you have this type of empath ability, you need to surround yourself with people who you feel aligned with. That's one reason I was not upset when my angels said, okay, Ivory, I know you love your work in mental health, but you're going to have to leave. You got to move across the mountain to Sedona, and you're going to start doing your spiritual work full time. I was sad in some ways because I loved my career, loved my clients, but I always felt so good in Sedona. Like I'd come over here and get giddy. And I just love being over here. It's not just the red rocks, it's the feeling of the place. And the other thing is you can go pretty much anywhere and find plenty of people to talk to about spirituality and metaphysics who know what you're talking about, who are accepting, who don't look at you like you just grew some horn out the top of your head. So it was a much more accepting place for a person with my gifts. And I do feel surrounded by more other people who are like me. It's really nice. But with this gift, you also need to strengthen your energetic field. You don't want to be constantly bombarded. I've had people plenty of times, it happens regularly. Somebody says, what are you getting about this person? I'm like, I'm not opening up. I'm not trying to read this person. I actually consciously try not to read people when I'm not in a reading with them or getting ready to do a reading. The only reason I do it when I'm getting ready to do a reading is I want to make sure they're a good person. I don't want to take them back to my office if I get a bad feeling. So that's it. But in a reading, I open myself up because you can't do a great reading unless you open yourself up to feeling these things. And outside of that, I do my best to shut it down. Of course, things are going to pierce through that sometimes. Sometimes things are so powerful that it just pierces right through your boundaries, your protection. And, you just do your best. And if that happens, you deal with it. And it's usually for a reason. I find when that happens for me, it's sort of my angels bringing my awareness to an aspect of a person, or maybe it is even going to be like a relative or a friend, and suddenly I'm feeling a physical thing, and I'm going to tell them, it's somebody I'm close with, I'm going to be, listen, please don't think I'm trying to read you, because I'm not, but I just looked at you and I suddenly feel this in my body. If you, please get that checked out at your earliest convenience, not to freak people out, but because if you have these gifts and you're given information, and you're not trying to read people, like you're consciously shielding yourself, there's a reason you're getting it. I'm not an advocate for going around and doing these readings with people who didn't ask for it. I would never do this with a stranger. Well, there was one time I did. I shouldn't say never. There was one time I did because my angels wouldn't leave me alone at the grocery store. But other than that, I would never go up to a stranger and say, hey, I'm picking up, there's something going on with your breathing, something, I feel something in your lower left abdomen. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm opening myself up for bad experience, and it's intrusive. So no, that's just not part of the conduct and ethics of my profession. Let's go on to the fourth type, a dream empath. And this is one I think a lot of people aren't aware of or don't think of it as an empath ability. This is somebody who receives intuitive information from dreams that helps themselves and others. And that's because they're typically gifted at clearly remembering dreams. And I will say for myself, this is something I have very strongly. All my life, my dreams have been so powerful and realistic that as a child, things would happen and I'd talk about it. And I remember my mom going, that never happened. And I'd say, oh, that must have been in my other life. So my dreams were my other life as a child till I understood, really what was going on. They were so powerful and so clear. And I do remember very, very seldom don't I remember exactly what happened in my dreams, what happened, who said what. And I write them down if they feel important to me. I write them in my journal, like the day, the time, what happened. You're able to remember these dreams for a reason. It's not to make your life difficult. It's so you're able to get the wisdom from whatever it is. What if an animal's talking to you in your dream? Who cares if it's an animal? Listen to what it says. Maybe for some reason you're going to listen to that talking dog better than you would a talking person. Sometimes a deceased relative might come through and talk about something. And a dream empath is also someone who can read between the lines and get the meaning from their own dreams and those of others. It's kind of hard sometimes in the beginning when you're really diving into this process, like trying to figure out which dreams are important. And there's certain things that happen for me, which is there will be like a piece of paper that spins up and then holds right in the center of the screen, like what I see in my dream. And it'll have word or words or a newspaper headline on it. And it'll stay there so long that I'm like, okay, they're making sure I get this clearly. And things will happen, like it'll be repetitive in the dream. They'll say it or else they'll show it to me over and over. So when I wake up, I have a little flashlight, a little notebook, and a pen by my bed, and I immediately write down the day, the time, the highlights of what I dreamed. And I do have a lot of precognitive dreams, which means I dream and then it comes true. And I wish mine were wonderful things like Aunt Mary's going to win the lottery. No, mine are like a bus is going to slide off the side of a hill in a landslide in another country. You know, there's going to be an earthquake here. There's going to be a flood here. Mine are a lot like that, or big headline news stories. So these are things just to be aware of. Yes, it is also a psychic ability, but again, empath is a psychic ability. So the fifth kind would be a geomantic empath. And most people haven't heard of this. I really wasn't nearly as aware of it until I started my business with my business partner, Rosalind Reynolds, who specializes in this. And she made me very aware of my gift with this. I just thought everybody had it, but it's called place or environmental empathy. And that means you have a fine attunement to the physical landscape. So you can be in a place, whether it's a home, a business, land, outside, and feel very uncomfortable there because you were tuning into something that happened on that land. It can also be about ley lines. Ley lines are very disorienting. I had one in my house, my first house in Sedona, and it went through my kitchen. And I couldn't figure it out at first because every time I'd walk across that spot, I'd get such bad vertigo. I had to hang on to the cupboards or the counter to not fall down. And I finally had Roz come over and she's like, there's a ley line. It goes right here. And that's exactly where, when I walked across it, I get real dizzy. There's also a place, another big one in Cottonwood here, that is a town, and a dollar store is right on it. And I had the weirdest thing happen. I was so embarrassed. I walked in there to pick up a few things before a family cruise. And I took about 6 steps into the store and my right leg froze up, like bent up, and I was stuck. And I felt like I was in this thick wall of goo. And I was frozen there. And the guy who was working at the counter was to my right. And he's watching me like, oh dear, we've got a nutter here. And I couldn't move. I was stuck in it, whatever it was. And I couldn't get out of it. And when I finally pushed my way through it, I turned around and looked, and that guy's still watching me. And I'm like, there's nothing there. And I'm mortified. I have no idea what's going on. And I walked all the way around like a different way to get back to the front of the store and got out of there. And I found out later from Roz about the ley line that goes through there. And she said, there's something it's really dark. And she said, that thing just didn't want you in there. But I felt like it was really very much the energy there, just like walking into a different energetic field that my body didn't like. It didn't jive with me, but I've never experienced anything before or since that's anything like that. So the other thing is you can be really happy. And I want to come back to how I felt in Sedona. My daughter and I used to come over to Sedona for girls' weekends when she was little and growing up. And we would just rent a little cabin and hike and have dinners and look in the shops. And it was just really fun. But as soon as we get to town, we were excited to go, we were excited to spend some time together, and we'd get to town and both of us would get giddy. We'd be giggly and feeling like just energy bubbling up inside the whole time we were there. And I still feel that way. So it makes me, a very giddy person, apparently. But the other place in Sedona that I have such a powerful feeling at is Red Rock Crossing. And I often send my clients there who could use that type of energy. Sometimes all of us from Sedona Soul Sisters have gone there and done some energy work, healing work together because the energy is so powerful. When you get close to the creek, you park your car and then you have to walk through this little clearing and you go down the woods to this creek. When you get near the creek, the energy lifts, the frequency is so high. And I feel so good there. I like to take my harp or my flute there and just find a rock to sit on and by the creek and just play and just absorb that wonderful energy. Or I'll sit there and I'll sing and just absorb the energy. It's very, very healing place to be. It's not going to be that way for everybody because the place that you feel that way about depends on your frequency and what you need. And for me, I know this is about this geomantic empath thing too, because I have that very strongly. So if you have this type of empath ability, you might have that deep connection to certain places. You could be drawn to sacred stones. You could be drawn to groves or churches or other places of sacred power. And for instance, in Sedona, that would be the vortexes. You could be sensitive to the history of the place. Oh my goodness. As a child, I grew up in Maryland, and every year our school, a grade school, would take us to Gettysburg on a field trip. It was torture for me because when we got out there anywhere near the actual battlefield area, I was just picking up agony and fear and terror. And I would feel so sick and weak, and it would just wipe me out. I loathed going there. The history of it was interesting, but the feeling I got was not. So also these kind of empaths are highly attuned to the natural world and they grieve for any damage to it. I know for me, every time I see anything about the Amazon forest being just wiped out, I feel it like this wave of sadness, even talking about it, it's going to make me cry. It just tears me up. And I know that's part of why I am so adamant about helping clean up the environment, doing everything I personally can and encouraging our lawmakers to be better, because I feel the state that our planet is in, and it isn't good. It's really hurting, and we're just making it worse every year. So, if you really feel that powerful draw to help the planet, help the environment, you probably are this type of empath. It's important for you to make your everyday surroundings as harmonious and beautiful as possible. And I find as clutter-free as possible. The less clutter you have, the more serene you're going to feel energetically and emotionally. It helps so much. And just make sure that as much as you can, that your home, your work surroundings look the way you like it, the colors you like that feel good and calming for you. It's also very likely you're going to put a lot of plants, and you might really be drawn to essential oils like in diffusers and things like that, because that's part of the environment. And also likely that you're going to want to choose natural materials for your clothing. I know for me, like as the years go by, I get more and more sensitive. Like I became chemically sensitive about 10 years ago, where I couldn't wear perfume, can't have scented candles, like all of that. Nope. Shuts down my breathing. And then it came like my skin's always been very sensitive. And I think that's true of this type of empath, where you can't stand anything scratchy, like labels. Sometimes you have to cut them out. You have to be careful about the seams in clothes. Those sweaters that were so popular that had little tiny sequins woven into them, those were an instrument of torture for me. Like I'd put it on, I'd be like, yeah, it felt like little shards of glass all over my body. So if your body is sensitive, really consider, switching to cotton, linen, silks as much as you can, bamboo, all those things that are just help your body breathe and more comfortable. So another thing too, this is kind of a big one, is with this type of empath, you're so attuned to the earth that it's very possible that you're going to feel things like solar flares coming and aim from the sun to the earth. My business partner, Roz, is super sensitive to that. I'm super sensitive to earthquakes. Like anytime there's an earthquake in the world, if it happens in the middle of the night, it wakes me up. I feel it as a jolt and nobody else will feel it. Like I've had it happen in broad daylight. I was living in the Phoenix area, and in broad daylight, there was a jolt that just shook the sofa. I was sitting on it, and the two people in the house with me they thought I was just imagining things. And then I looked up and I said, look at the hanging light in the entryway. And it was swinging like this. And they're like, oh my God. And then I started looking this up. Like when I'd feel those jolts, I'd look it up online later. And sure enough, I'd note the day, the time. And sure enough, there was a big earthquake somewhere in the world. Doesn't have to be near me, but somewhere in the world. I know other people like this. I used to feel so weird about this, but now I just like, it's another one of those things about being this type of empath. So let's get on to the next type, an animal empath. And you probably have a pretty good idea of what that means. There's a lot of these out there that are just really attuned to animals. They're always wanting to hang with their pet. They'll say things like their pet is their best friend, that they are more comfortable around animals than people. That's a very clear sign. So a special connection with animals, and often they feel their needs. It's like the animal can communicate with them, sort of an animal whisperer type. And I've had that only, I don't really have a whole lot of this, but because I'm allergic to everything with fur and feathers, I guess. But when my daughter was younger, she had two miniature greyhounds, Olive and Peanut. And Olive was such a great little dog. And then when Michelle got Peanut, who looked like a baby, like a fawn, Olive was a very intelligent dog and older, and Peanut was a nitwit, but the cutest, sweetest looking little dog you can imagine. But she drove Olive nuts. And when I'd be visiting, Olive would look at me and I could hear from her, like from her gaze, she's like, why are you doing this to me? Please do something. Get this little thing away from me. I mean, it was just, she might as well have been yelling it out. So I have heard it, and that gives me a taste of what it must be like for an animal empath. I do know plenty of animal empaths. Debbie down in the Cave Creek area, like that's what she does for a living. And she's just like all attuned to the animals. And it's really a special empath skill. Not everybody has that. Again, when you're an empath, you might have a few people have all of the types of empaths. Some have many, some have one. It's varied, just same with psychic skills. But there's one more type of empath that's not talked about or written about much, and I want to share it with you. And that is being a plant empath. My mother is a plant empath. That woman, her mother was a plant empath. Those two and their green thumbs are amazing, legendary gardens, plants. When my mom was younger, their house was full of hundreds of thriving, gorgeous plants, and she's so good with orchids. It's a skill, and it really is about this, kind of like the pet empath can feel what the pet needs and hear what they need. A plant empath can tune into the plant's needs and hear what they need. Hey, I talk to my plants. I've given them names during COVID because I was here alone for 15 months and I got desperate, and they still have their names and I love them, but I don't hear them talking to me. And the evidence is that plants could die. I might overwater them or underwater them or give them too much light, but that doesn't usually happen when somebody's a plant empath. They just intuitively know that, oh, that plant, that needs more water, or you need more light. You want me to move you, or they talk to them more. I don't know if you follow any of those scientific experiments, and I'm all about scientific experiments, but Dr. Emoto, who's since passed, did some books on this, The Secret Life of Water. And I don't know if it's in that book or a follow-up one that he talks about the effect of words on plants and how they thrive or don't. And so, people have done some experiments where they get two exact plants, put them in the same location. And one plant, they get close and they'll say, I love you. You're beautiful. Thank you. Gratitude, love, positive, lovely words. And the other one, they'll say, I hate you, you're ugly, things like that. They did this to see if it was true. And do you know the plant that they spoke lovely words to was thriving? The other one wilted and died. And imagine if it can do that to a plant, what are words doing to people? So look at that secret life of water, the effect that words have on water, and humans being primarily water-based beings. I think there's a lot of importance for that for us. So if you're a plant person, they also make great friends, because one of the benefits of being a plant empath is that they offer this tenderness to saplings, and it can roll over to compassion and other areas of life, like a great tenderness for the very young or the very old, or people who have infirmities. If you're this type of empath, you already know you need a lot of contact with plants, trees. You probably love gardening. You probably enjoy watching things grow, maybe even growing your own food. And if you have this, you probably will enjoy strengthening that natural bond by sitting quietly by a special tree. I have one. I'm not a plant empath, but I really love this house because of this ancient, amazing, twisted looking tree in my front yard. And I like to sit by that tree. It's my favorite tree I have here. You can also sit and just like look at plants, just watch things, look at the process they're in, of things that are blooming, growing. Just sitting out in nature is very important for you, to find places that feel good, where you feel that strong connection to nature. And when I see this in clients, sometimes it'll come up that they are this type of person, and I will literally hear, you need more time at the ocean, or you need more time in the woods. And they'll be like, oh my gosh, I love that. And I haven't been doing it. I'm like, well, your spirit needs it. Your body needs it. So again, being an empath is not easy. It can be really hard to deal with. It isn't going to go away. I tried for decades. It doesn't go away. So you can find it confusing, disorienting, exhausting, embarrassing. But if you understand the type of empath you are, and that it's a gift, a spiritual gift, then you can start using it to help yourself and others around you. So I want to go through quickly a few ideas for career options for different types of empaths. By no means is this an all-inclusive list. So if you're an emotional empath, giving empathic readings, like a psychic reading with a lot of empath input, being a counselor, a therapist, a mediator, a mentor to other empaths, a life coach, writing a blog about everything to do with empaths. You need as much control over your work environment as possible. So consider being self-employed, owning your own business, or working from home. When you're a physical medical empath, a medical intuitive is a choice. You can get professional training for that to hone your natural skills. You can be a medium if you also have mediumship abilities, energy healer or other holistic healing, massage therapist, a doctor, a nurse, a paramedic, emergency services dispatcher. All these things are helpful with your skill. If you have the claircognizant intuitive empath ability, being a professional psychic is a natural. A dream interpreter, jury selection expert. You can really hone in and see who's going to be good for the case. Recruitment for businesses, business consultant, to go in and figure out like, where are the problems in the business? Who are the people that are holding things back, that are causing internal issues? If you have dream empath ability, you could be a dream interpreter, a counselor, a therapist, a spiritual counselor, or a writer. There's so many great books out there about dream interpretations, dream symbols. If you're a geomantic empath, where you're about the earth itself, places, you can be a psychic, an energy consultant. You can do energy clearings of homes, land, businesses. You could do divining, like where you take the rod and find water and other substances with a divining rod. You could be a blogger about the subject. You could do land analysis, real estate consultant. I do a lot of that, just like, will this be a good investment? Will these people like this house? Is this the best one for us? Animal empath. Here's some obvious: veterinarian, pet rescue, wildlife park employee, a pet psychic, a pet healer, a pet therapist. They exist. An animal activist, or a blogger about pets and their feelings and how to read that. If you're a plant empath, you can be a garden center employee, a specialist, an arborist who specializes in trees, forest service, growing facility of any kind, farming, a plant consultant. There are actually people who make a living going into homes and businesses and advising them how to rescue their plants. So I want to just talk about overall, to close things. Yes, it can feel like a curse to be an empath until you realize that you can help others with your gift. That is such a turning point. And if you are an empath of any of these kinds or a mix thereof, just think about this, give it some thought. Embrace your gift. God gave it to you for a reason, and you're supposed to use it to help others. It's not a mistake that you're an empath. It is a major spiritual tool that you entered this life with, and you're meant to use it. When you begin to help others, you'll see that gift for what it truly is. Please tune in next week when the topic is true stories of angel encounters. If you have one you'd like to share, join me live on the show, or you can send me your story ahead of time to ivoryangelic@outlook.com. And in the meantime, may your angels surround you. May your angels protect you every moment, every day of your life.